Hey friends, Patrick here, and today let's talk about strings in C#. A rather basic thing you would think, but well, let's see how you can work with strings and what may be the better or even best practice if you want to display strings or use strings in functions or with console write line, for instance, here in this console application. Now, what do I want to tell you here? If you are a beginner in C#, or even if you're already an advanced C# developer, then maybe you already know string concatenation, right? So this means you see something like that, console write line, welcome, tell me your name, warrior. We are again in a game, of course, and then we are waiting for the input of the player and then give or put the string that was entered by the player into this variable here, player name. Now we can play around with that, right? So we can say something like console write line again, and then we say, for instance, welcome, and then you want to use the player name. So what you can do is welcome or well then, and then plus player name, your adventure begins, something like that. All right, and let's run this to have a quick look. Here's the console again, tell me your name, warrior. We enter a link and then we see, well then link, your adventure begins. Now this is string concatenation. The problem with that is that it may be not that readable, right? And if you have more strings or more variables that you want to use in that string, then, well, it can get really tedious. Now, the solution for that is string interpolation, and you can use it with the $sign here, and then you do not have to use the quotation marks to close the string, and then the plus, and then add the variable, and so on. What you can do now is just remove all that, and you write just the sentence or whatever you want to display on the screen. And if you want to use a variable, then you use curly braces to, well, use the content of this variable. And when we run this again on the other screen again, and here we enter again a link, and we see, well, then link, your adventure begins. That's already nice, right? But what about expressions, for instance? You want to do more. You want to calculate something with some integer values, or you want to run a function, a method. You can do that as well, of course. Got some code prepared for that, so you don't have to wait till I entered everything. So here it is. Let's just say we have a weapon now, the master sword, with a damage and a damage multiplier. And then you can here already see I want to use couple of variables actually in my text. So here you see your weapon, then the damage of the weapon, and then also the critical damage, right? So here you can already see I used a function, but we can first start, for instance, just with an expression. Here it's the damage multiplier, and as you can see, let me just close the solution explorer. So now you see everything. You have your weapon with the weapon variable, the damage, and then also here damage times multiplier then results in our critical damage. And when we run this now and use our warrior here, you see the master sword, the damage, and the critical damage then. So this works as well. And again, of course, you can also use methods here if you want. Run this one more time, and that's the result. So this is the magic of string interpolation. In my opinion, really the best practice. Of course, sometimes you want to use the string builder for more complex strings even maybe. But there's still one more thing I want to show you, and this is relatively new, came with C# 11, so 2022, I hope that's correct. And these are then so-called raw string literals. Now this means, what if I want to display that stuff here in multiple lines? Now what you can do is, of course, you can use these crazy commands, and with that then we say this is a new line, and I'm getting really lazy, so I have no name for our warrior. But you can see here now your weapon, the master sword, and then damage 10, critical damage 50. Okay, not that readable in my opinion, so we have another option, and these are the so-called verbatim strings. So you just add the @ here, and then put this in a new line, and when we run this now, we see something like that, the master sort and the damage. But now, what if I want that, for instance, the damage here in my code a bit more readable, meaning that I have the text of the other lines down here. So really, for every developer and myself, it is easier to read, right? Now, what happens when I run this? Then you see that the text is still not what I expected, right? Because now I have an indentation problem. I see your weapon begins at the proper place, but then damage and critical damage not the right place for me. How can we fix that? Well, for that now, again, since C#11, we've got raw string literals, and this simply means we remove the @ sign here, but we add 2 more quotation marks and also add them to the end here. Just make sure when you entered them, okay, Visual Studio Code, thank you that you wanted to help me, but this is actually what I wanted. You see, you've got a bunch of errors here, right? So maybe you're thinking, well, Patrick, you wanted to show me something here, but what is that does not work? Well, just hit enter and you see that all of a sudden this works. So now with multi-line strings, and you see this great line here, this means Visual Studio is telling you this is the beginning of your text. And when I now just move that a bit to that line, move that back, then you will see in the end result, everything is formatted properly. So now, again, let's use link here. We see your weapon, damage and critical damage, everything with the correct indentation. Yeah, I think this is the right word. And I can also read this stuff. Just make sure if you're using 3 quotation marks that you start your text in a new line, all right? Otherwise you get all these errors. Now there's more to raw string literals. For instance, what if we have quotation marks in our text here? Well, what you can do then is that you just add another quotation mark, and this still works, and it's always the same pattern. You can even add a 5th one, and then you have the same result. All right, so that's it for string interpolation and raw string literals. Tell me what you think about that. I hope you learned something with that. I know this is beginner stuff, but still, I've got so many questions from you guys about C# beginner and intermediate stuff, and maybe it is also a great refresher, maybe. So again, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for hitting the like button and maybe subscribing to my channel. To all my patrons, I love every single one of you, and I hope I see you next time. Take care.